Hey guys, tonight we're going deep into the rainforest, where the air clings to your skin like warm syrup, and the only thing louder than your breath is the buzz of something you hope isn't poisonous. You're trudging through the underbrush of southern Mesoamerica, thick vines, ancient trees, and a suspiciously large spider or two, because apparently this is where the Mayans first found something they called cacao. You might know it as chocolate. Not the silky sweet stuff wrapped in shiny foil and conveniently stored at checkout lines. Nope. This was bitter, grainy, slightly spicy, and probably thick enough to chew. It wasn't dessert, it was sacred. And your modern taste buds? Yeah, they probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this little sleepy time history club reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch near the base of a massive Theobroma cacao tree. Its pods look more like mutant rugby balls than anything edible. Some are yellow, some orange, a few deep purple. You watch as a Mayan farmer cracks one open with a practiced thwack. Inside is a cluster of gooey white pulp clinging to bitter seeds. Seeds that, once fermented, dried, roasted, and ground, will become one of the most culturally important substances in Mesoamerican history. Right now, though, it smells like sour melon and dirt, and that farmer is carefully scooping out the pulp and seeds into a clay bowl, humming a tune you can't place but instinctively trust. This is the start of the process, and it's both scientific and deeply spiritual. The Mayans didn't just eat or drink cacao, they believed it was a gift from the gods, specifically the gods who cared about fertility, rain, trade, and, oddly enough, the underworld. Some myths claim cacao was discovered by divine beings and shared with humanity as both medicine and food. Others suggest that the gods themselves enjoyed sipping a cup before battle, or before bed. Same energy, really. Historians still argue whether cacao was originally consumed by commoners or if it was exclusively reserved for the elite. What's clear, though, is that from the earliest days of Mayan civilization, about 2,000 years ago, cacao wasn't just food, it was a ceremony in bean form. You sit by a smoky fire now, watching the fermentation process begin. Large leaves, possibly banana or plantain, are folded over a pile of fresh cacao pulp. The air is thick with heat and insects, but it's also filled with the slow magic of transformation. As the beans ferment, their flavor deepens and shifts. You'd never guess something this unremarkable looking would one day become the base of global obsession. Back then, of course, there was no sugar, no milk, no artificial vanilla extract, just cacao, sometimes a bit of chili, a handful of crushed flowers, or, if someone's feeling adventurous, a sprinkle of ground annatto for color. The beans are eventually laid out on wide mats under the sun, drying for days. You're handed one to smell. It's still not pleasant. Bitter, acrid, smoky. But this is what transformation smells like in the jungle. Slow, unapologetic, earthy. Later, you follow the beans into a stone hut where a woman with weathered hands and a golden nose ring grinds them on a metati, a slanted stone slab. The sound is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, stone against stone, being against willpower. She doesn't glance up, just grinds with a kind of quiet pride. You lean in, curious, and now the scent has changed again. Roasty, dark, almost floral. A far cry from the spoiled melon funk of earlier. This is the beginning of Mayan chocolate. No sugar, no cocoa butter extraction, no sweet wrapper. Just roasted cacao, ground into paste, and mixed with water. Sometimes cornmeal, often chili, occasionally blood. Okay, not yours. Relax. It wasn't common, but ceremonial drinks occasionally included a drop or two of sacrificial blood, especially in elite or religious contexts, because why not add a little hemoglobin to your nightcap? But mostly, the drink was practical, energizing, a little spicy, often lukewarm. The Mayans didn't boil their cacao drinks like the Aztecs sometimes did. Instead, the flavor came from blending, frothing, and careful selection of complementary ingredients. Wild vanilla, magnolia flowers, ground pepper, and local herbs we still don't fully recognize today. One fringe theory: some early recipes included fermented corn beer mixed into the cacao. Like a proto-latte, if your barista wore feathers and carried a spear. You take your first cautious sip, and yeah, you're not ready. It's gritty, earthy, with a heat that crawls up your throat, but somehow, it grows on you. It tastes like forest shadows and old gods, like something meant to keep you awake while also wrapping your thoughts in velvet. The Mayans didn't just stumble upon chocolate. They elevated it. They sang to it, traded with it, worshipped it. You wipe your mouth with a palm leaf and settle in beside the fire. Somewhere in the distance, a howler monkey screams like it's being denied whipped cream. There's none of that here. No whipped cream, no marshmallows, no sugar rush. Just the first chapter in a story of sacred bitterness. One that will take you through trade routes, temple rituals, lunar ceremonies, and even Spanish ships that didn't know what hit them. But for now, you sit with the jungle, with the bitter brew, with the quiet, holy beginning of something deliciously forgotten. You wake up the next morning, or maybe you never quite fell asleep. Hard to say when the jungle hums all night, and your bed is a thatch mat under stars that look much closer than they do in your world. The air is already thick with heat, and your host is already preparing a morning brew of, you guessed it, cacao. Only this time, it's not just a drink, it's money. You're in the heart of the Mayan marketplace now, and it's buzzing. Not in the frantic city rush way, more like bees around ripe fruit. The stalls are simple but vibrant: bright cloths, roasted squash, carved jade, baskets of chilies and beans, so many beans. Not green beans, not coffee beans, cacao beans. You're watching a transaction that would make your modern bank clerk cry. A few cacao beans change hands for a couple of tamales. 10 beans get you a small rabbit. 100 beans? You're walking away with a new blanket or maybe a shiny obsidian blade if you haggle hard enough. These aren't just snacks, they're legal tender. Historians still argue whether cacao beans were universally accepted currency or more regionally based, but it's clear they held real value. Counterfeiting was even a thing. Some clever individuals hollowed out beans and stuffed them with dirt to pass them off in bulk. You can't help but smirk. Every economy has its loopholes, right? As you shuffle through the market in your makeshift sandals, you notice everyone seems to know how much cacao is worth. A child counts out beans carefully, placing them in a tiny reed pouch. A farmer in a wide straw hat counts aloud as he hands over a string of dried fish. And you're offered a sweet corn cake in exchange for 6 beans, and frankly, that's a steal. But this isn't just commerce, it's culture. The way the beans are presented matters. Some are carefully rubbed with ash, others slightly polished. You spot a merchant sorting them by size and sheen, the same way someone might arrange precious stones. There's pride in the display, a whisper of status, like carrying designer wallets full of bitter seeds. Even taxes were sometimes paid in cacao. Not cash, not goods, just beans. It gave you an odd kind of mobility. A traveling priest could carry his offerings in a pouch. A soldier might get paid in cacao. A tribute from one village to another? Yep, more beans. And considering how fussy the gods were about quality, there was a whole spiritual layer to it, too. You pause at a stall where a woman is selling jade amulets and, of course, cacao drinks. This time it's mixed with allspice and a hint of crushed rose petals. The texture is smoother than yesterday's, almost velvety, and the froth sits like lazy clouds on the surface. You take a sip and realize you're not just tasting a beverage. You're tasting power, trade, story, legacy. Remember that sacred kitchen we glimpsed last night? This is the other half of that ritual. In the temple, cacao is a gift to the gods. Here, it's how you pay for your sandals, your lunch, your seat at a ceremony. It's a bridge between divine and daily. One fringe theory suggests that cacao's value skyrocketed not just because of taste or scarcity, but because of its role in marriage ceremonies. Dowries of cacao were not uncommon. Imagine proposing with a sack of beans instead of a ring. Slightly less sparkly, but potentially more delicious. And then there's the elite class, kings, priests, war captains, who hoarded the finest beans the way modern collectors hoard rare watches. Only theirs smelled like roasted wood smoke and promises. You overhear a noble complaining about a shipment of subpar beans, clearly offended that he received swamp fermented instead of sun dried. As you wander deeper into the marketplace, you notice a structure at the center, not a bank, but close. It's a cacao storage hut, guarded by a couple of intimidating men with obsidian clubs and very little patience for nonsense. Inside are huge clay urns sealed with wax and leaves, probably holding thousands of beans. This isn't for sipping, it's for safeguarding. And yes, cacao was occasionally stolen. Raids on rival villages sometimes focus less on gold or jade, and more on grabbing the biggest haul of beans possible. Because power in this world isn't shiny, it's edible. You sit on a woven mat now, clutching a small pouch someone gifted you. 5 beans, not much, but enough to buy a simple meal, enough to trade for a carved wooden comb, enough to be part of something bigger than yourself. The jungle breathes around you, and somewhere a conch shell signals the end of trading hours. Merchants begin packing up, conversations drift toward tomorrow's weather, and whether the new cacao harvest will be better than the last. You smile, remembering your local coffee shop back home and how people argue over oat milk versus almond. Here, the debate is whether dried marigold or wild honey makes a better cacao mix. Honestly, you'd take either. You take one last walk past the traders, past the displays of dried peppers, salted fish, carved gourds, and, yes, even more cacao beans. Each one a miniature monument to a civilization that found the divine in the everyday, that saw a value in bitterness, that turned beans into the beating heart of their economy, their rituals, and their memories. And as the jungle begins to settle into dusk, you feel the warmth of that final sip linger in your mouth. Earthy, spicy, just a little smoky, no sugar required. You follow the scent of roasted cacao through narrow village paths, stepping around chickens that seem unbothered by your presence. The heat presses down like a wool blanket left in the sun, and somewhere nearby, a dog lets out a single, judgmental bark. Your guide, a boy barely old enough to lift the heavy stone he's carrying, leads you to a thatched building, half buried in vines and smoke. This is the heart of sacred preparation. The kitchen is low and dim, its ceiling stained with soot. Clay pots bubble over a wood fire, and the walls are lined with bundles of herbs, corn, and dried flowers strung like garlands. In the center, 3 women sit cross-legged, grinding, mixing, whispering, not quite praying, but not far off. You're about to witness the divine kitchen of cacao. Here, chocolate isn't made for dessert, it's brewed with intention. Every ingredient has meaning. Every movement echoes generations. This is a ritual, 1 part culinary art, 1 part religious devotion. You take a seat, careful not to offend or disrupt. The eldest woman, her arms strong from years of grinding stone on stone, gestures toward a flat slab of basalt. On it, cacao paste is being mixed with water, very slowly. The consistency is more like wet clay than any drink you've known. Then comes the magic. From a separate bowl, she pinches and crushed dried chili, just a little, then powdered magnolia petals, then annatto, for color. The paste takes on a reddish hue, thick and strange. A smell rises, earthy, sweet, bitter, floral, and sharp. It hits your nose in layers, like memories you haven't remembered yet. Historians still argue whether certain ingredients, like magnolia or wild vanilla, were reserved solely for ceremonial use, or if they flavored everyday cacao too. The line between sacred and mundane here is always blurry. One sip might be for a god, the next for a guest. And you, it turns out, are the guest. Before the mixture is poured, one of the women blows gently across the bowl, a gesture of offering, or maybe of cooling. It's unclear, but it's quiet, intentional. She pours the thick paste into a tall, narrow vessel, and then begins to pour it back and forth between 2 bowls, from height, again and again, frothing. It's mesmerizing. The liquid stretches and dances through the air, catching the light like molten silk, and the sound, soft splashes punctuated by the rustle of wind and distant birds, calms something in you. You remember section 1, the grinding, the paste, the first taste. But here, in the sacred kitchen, the preparation is different, slower, almost meditative. You're watching centuries of knowledge performed with barely a word. It's culinary storytelling. The drink, once sufficiently aerated, is finally poured into a ceremonial cup. It's painted with gods and serpents, probably meant to intimidate or impress. It looks too delicate to hold, but the woman hands it to you with a slight nod. You sip. This is not your corner store chocolate. This is rich, spicy, smoky, and perfumed with flowers you don't have names for. It tastes ancient, like something that's seen kings rise and temples fall. And underneath all of that, a steady, soft bitterness that grounds the drink, makes it serious, sacred. One fringe theory suggests that cacao was used not just in food and ritual, but as a form of diplomacy. Imagine handing this drink to a rival tribe leader as both peace offering and subtle challenge. Here, you'd say without saying, taste what we can do. In this moment, you wonder how many flavors of cacao have vanished. Flowers that no longer bloom, spices that were forgotten, blends that only existed in one family's kitchen, entire palates erased by time, colonization, or simple neglect. Yet, right here, you taste survival. The women return to their grinding, their whispering. You place the empty cup carefully beside you. No applause, no chatter, just the fire popping, the scent of roasting beans, and the slow drip of time. And as you lean back against the warm earth wall, you begin to understand something. This isn't just a kitchen. It's a temple made of soot and steam. Its gods don't need statues, just well-balanced flavor and properly frothed drinks. You close your eyes and let the aftertaste linger. It's sharp, floral, bitter, like a story that didn't end cleanly but still deserves to be told. You don't walk far, just a few steps through tall, dew-slicked grass and over a carved stone threshold. This building is quieter, cooler, and much grander. Intricate murals line the walls, depicting serpents, stars, and figures with enormous feathered headdresses. You've entered the ceremonial hall, where only the elite gather. Tonight's brew, reserved for nobility. You're here to observe, not participate, though you suspect they might offer you a sip anyway. You're clearly the outsider, the curious one, but Mayan hospitality runs deep, especially when it comes to cacao. The nobles are seated on low benches cushioned with jaguar pelts. Their garments shimmer with dyed cotton, jade pendants, and quetzal feathers. A servant moves slowly through the room, carrying a large painted vessel filled to the brim with a foaming cacao concoction. This one is spiced differently. You catch hints of cayenne, crushed annatto, maybe something smoky, possibly charred sap. One lord lifts the drink to his lips with both hands. The room stills. He drinks slowly, deliberately, and only after swallowing does he speak. His words are quiet, poetic. A toast? A prophecy? It's hard to say. The cacao here isn't just a beverage. It's a symbol of rank, intelligence, even cosmic alignment. Some believe the gods themselves drank it during council. Specifically, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity, bringer of knowledge and storms. According to legend, Kukulkan gifted cacao to the Mayans not only as food, but as a key to focus, clarity, and connection between worlds. Historians still argue whether these myths were region-specific or shared across Mesoamerica. Some depictions of Kukulkan show him holding cacao pods. Others show cacao trees growing near temples dedicated to him. Either way, you get the feeling this drink is more than something to sip. It's a form of communication. You glance at a painted panel behind the speaker, Kukulkan descending from a serpent-shaped cloud, offering a glowing pod to a wide-eyed human. The message is clear. This isn't just food, it's revelation. Someone offers you a small serving. You accept, gingerly, reverently. The cup is warm, weighty. The foam is thicker than you've seen before, nearly a half-inch of pillowy texture floating on the top. You taste. And whoa, it's spicy, really spicy. But not like hot wings. This is a creeping heat, building at the back of your throat and warming your chest like a wool blanket wrapped around a campfire. There's something floral tucked beneath the spice. Maybe wild orchid? Maybe not. And there's an undertone of ash that makes you think of lightning striking a tree. It's not pleasant exactly, but it is powerful. The nobles don't speak much. Instead, they sit in silence, staring at the fire, occasionally murmuring to one another. This is less a party and more a meditation session, one fueled by liquid ceremony. One fringe theory, that the Mayans used different cacao brews to enhance specific rituals, some for war councils, some for fertility blessings, others, like this one, for invoking vision or inspiration. There are even hints and glyphs and oral stories that some brews were designed to produce lucid dreams. You take another sip and lean back. The foam sticks to your lip. No one tells you. You don't mind. The night air slips in through a carved stone lattice. You hear distant drums, maybe part of another ceremony, or maybe just a rhythm meant to anchor your thoughts as the cacao begins to settle in your system. The servant passes again, this time carrying a tray of crushed herbs in obsidian cups. Not alcohol, as far as you can tell, just more cacao. This time mixed with something blue. You don't ask, you don't need to, because in this moment, you're not in a history video. You're seated next to kings, sipping the drink of the feathered serpent. And whether or not you understand the full meaning doesn't matter. What matters is the warmth, the foam, the firelight dancing against mural painted walls, and the taste, always the taste, that carries something ancient and strange, bitter and beautiful, back into your throat. You close your eyes for a moment, just long enough to forget where your own world ends and theirs begins. The sun is up again, but the jungle doesn't care. It's still damp, still loud, still pulsing with the kind of energy that makes your modern morning routine feel like a quiet whimper in comparison. You're back among the everyday people now. Less jade, fewer feathers, but no less reverence for cacao. This morning, you're crouched next to a wide stone bench in the center of a courtyard. There's a half circle of women, each armed with 2 bowls, one in hand, one on the ground. They're pouring cacao, back and forth, again and again and again. You're about to witness a part of the process that modern hot chocolate forgot. The sacred act of frothing. No mechanical whisks here, no latte steamers, just gravity, precision, and a steady hand. The women lift one bowl high above their heads, arms steady, eyes focused, and let the thick cacao stream down into the other bowl. It lands with a soft blup, splashing just enough to create bubbles. They trade bowls and repeat, over and over. It's hypnotic. You try it once, you fail immediately. The cacao slaps into the bowl with a rude splash, splattering your arms and leaving behind something closer to sludge than foam. The women laugh, not cruelly, just knowingly. You've got rookie energy and they have muscle memory passed down through generations. Historians still argue whether froth was more about flavor or symbolism. Was it prized for texture alone, or did the foam represent something more sacred? Some glyphs suggest the froth symbolized breath, life itself. Others think it was just the mark of a well-made brew. Either way, a cacao drink without foam was considered unfinished. Like a flat soda, but sadder. The most skilled frothers could achieve 3 or even 4 fingers worth of foam. That's right, there was a measuring system, and yes, people bragged about it. Imagine a neighborhood showdown where everyone gathers to see who could achieve the tallest froth. Quietly competitive, deeply caffeinated. One woman beside you, her hair in a long braid with a single red feather, achieves a perfect froth on her first pour. It glistens in the sun like a crown of velvet bubbles. She offers you a sip, and this time, you know better than to gulp. It's cooler than last night's noble brew. Thinner, slightly gritty. The bitterness is still there, but muted. This version is blended with masa, cornmeal, and just a trace of smoked chili. It tastes like breakfast and ritual all at once. You try not to spill any of the foam. You don't want to be that guest. One fringe tidbit you learned from a nearby boy. Some people believed the bubbles could reveal things. The shape, the spread, even the way the foam settled in the cup. Like tea leaves, but frothier. Divination by cacao. You watch your own cup closely, pretending you see something meaningful. Mostly you see a frog-shaped swirl. Could be a good sign. As the morning drifts into midday, the air thickens. Frothing slows. The women shift from pouring to sipping, passing bowls, sharing gossip you can't understand but thoroughly enjoy listening to. There's laughter, a clatter of bowls. Someone breaks into a short song about a man who dropped his cacao in a river and swam after it for 3 days. You're not sure if it's true, but you'd believe it. The courtyard is dotted with drying cacao skins, corn husks, and slow-moving dogs. One of them curls up next to your leg, possibly mistaking you for a soft surface. You don't mind. There's something sacred here, not in the monumental way of temples or kings, but in the rhythm of repetition. The simple act of pouring, frothing, passing, drinking. You dip your fingers into the bowl and taste the foam on its own. It's slightly sweet, surprisingly airy, with just a hint of chili on the back end. It melts quickly, gone before your thoughts can fully catch up. And maybe that's the point. You lean back against a sun-warmed stone wall. The breeze rustles the palm fronds above you, and the soft bloop, bloop of distant frothing continues like a lullaby in reverse. Instead of coaxing sleep, it's calling attention, inviting you to notice, to slow down, to taste things that take time. And as the final bubbles in your cup collapse into silence, you wonder why the world ever traded this ritual for powdered packets and microwaved mugs. The sun hangs low now, casting long golden fingers across the village path as smoke curls from dozens of fires. Dinner is brewing, and the scent is impossible to ignore. Roasting maize, charred squash, and something deep and bitter drifting from a wide clay pot set over glowing coals. You follow your nose through the hush of dusk toward the part of Mayan life that's rarely sung about. Comfort food. And yes, chocolate is here too, but tonight you won't be drinking it. Instead, you're handed a small bowl filled with the thick, grainy stew. It's hot, it's smoky, and it smells like someone set fire to a cornfield in the best possible way. Nestled in the center, a dollop of cacao paste. Not mixed in, just waiting. You stir it gently, and the chocolate melts into the meal, thickening it, darkening it, flavoring it with earth and ash. This isn't ceremonial, this is family dinner. One of the older women laughs at your hesitation and mimics emotion. Scoop, blow, eat. You mimic her and taste. It's unlike anything you've had before. The cacao adds a depth, a slight bitterness, a quiet warmth that you didn't expect from a stew. There's roasted maize, bits of dried squash, even a hint of honey that must have caramelized over the fire. And it works, somehow. You've entered the world of cacao as sustenance, as flavor, as home. Historians still debate whether cacao was commonly used in daily meals, or if its culinary role outside drinks was exaggerated over time. But archaeological evidence suggests it wasn't limited to cups. There were tamales with cacao, sauces with cacao, even breads and pastes made better with a spoonful of the good bitter stuff. One fringe theory says cacao mixed with burnt lime and chilies acted as a kind of warrior food, fast energy, easy to carry, a precursor to modern energy bars. You try not to picture a jaguar-painted soldier unwrapping a cacao-stuffed corn pouch mid-battle, but, well, now you can't unsui it. You sit on a low stool near the fire. Around you, everyone is eating slowly, savoring the heat and the silence that settles just before nightfall. Someone offers you a leaf-wrapped tamale. You accept. This one's been steamed with beans and cacao paste. It tastes like dusk, warm, smoky, just a little bit strange. In another bowl, someone is stirring roasted cacao nibs into mashed plantains. Sweet, earthy, soft, like dessert without sugar or expectations. No one's measuring grams of protein or worrying about macros here. This food is about balance, about grounding, and yes, maybe a little about gut health. Because let's be honest, cacao will get things moving. You lean back and look at the flames. The pot over the fire crackles as bits of paste cling to the sides and sizzle. Someone scrapes the crusty edge and offers you a bite. You burn your tongue, nod gratefully, and try to look like you didn't. As the stars begin to slip into the sky, someone passes around a final drink. Lukewarm cacao mixed with burnt honey and a trace of crushed herbs. It's thick, almost gritty, and tastes like every campfire memory you've never had. It settles in your chest like a bedtime story, told through flavor. One woman starts humming softly. A few others join in. It's not a song with words, just sound, comfort, rhythm. You remember the grandeur of the noble halls, the precise frothing in the courtyard, the divine kitchens filled with whispering priestesses. But this might be your favorite, because it's here, by the hearth, where cacao lives in its most human form, not as currency or sacrament, but as dinner. As the fire dies down and bowls are emptied, you feel that warmth spreading in your belly, rising into your chest, slowing your thoughts until even the buzz of the jungle starts to fade. You've tasted history tonight, but more than that, you've tasted home. The jungle is alive tonight, not the noisy kind of alive. The pulse is slower now, deeper. It hums through the trees and snakes along the earth. The wind carries smoke and something sweet, something faintly spice, something intoxicating. You follow flickering torchlight toward the clearing, where a crowd is beginning to gather. Faces are painted, anklets rattle. The drums haven't started yet, but you can feel them anyway, somewhere low in your ribs. You've stumbled into the Cacao Eclipse Festival. No one tells you exactly what to do, so you stand near the edge, trying not to look too lost. Someone hands you a carved wooden cup, warm to the touch, slick with condensation. You peer inside. The liquid is darker than any cacao you've seen before, almost black. The scent is rich, but strange. Bitter chocolate, yes, but also herbs you don't recognize. Something metallic, something not quite of this world. It's thick, syrupy. You sip, and the effect is instant. Not a buzz, not a high, more like a shift. The drink wraps itself around your brain and whispers, "Sit down, you're not done dreaming." This isn't your average bedtime brew. This is something brewed for the gods. One fringe theory, unconfirmed but irresistible, suggests that Mayans sometimes spike ceremonial cacao with mildly hallucinogenic plants, not to trip, but to open a spiritual door, to see differently, deeper, to feel the pull of the stars and the breath of the gods. Tonight, that theory feels less fringe. Historians still argue whether these eclipse ceremonies were pan-Mayan or localized traditions. The glyphs are hard to interpret, and the stories differ from village to village. But what they agree on, eclipses were terrifying and sacred, a celestial interruption, a cosmic reset. And cacao, it was the offering, the anchor. You take another sip, slower this time, and move into the crowd. Faces blur in torchlight, feathers catch fire glow. A man in a jaguar pelt begins to chant in a low, rhythmic tone. Others join. The sound builds, layered and echoing, like the jungle itself is listening. Then, silence. The eclipse begins. The moon, full and glowing, slips behind the earth's shadow. The clearing dims as if someone gently turned down the volume of the sky. Gasps ripple through the crowd and your breath catches, not out of fear, but awe. A moment stretched thin, strung between the worlds. A priest steps forward. His hands are stained red with pigment, or maybe with cacao. It's hard to tell. He lifts his bowl to the sky and pours the dark liquid onto the earth. The steam rises. The people hum. You drink again, and you feel it. Your heart sinking to the chant, your limbs heavy, your mind oddly light. Someone beside you begins to sway. You do too. It doesn't feel weird. It feels necessary. A child beside you giggles, not out of mischief, but reverence. Even they know tonight is not like other nights. A woman begins to sing. It's not melodic, not structured, just a rising of voice that makes the air shimmer. More voices join. The darkness deepens. The moon vanishes completely. You're left in blackness, in silence, in the lingering heat of cacao and ritual, and the possibility that tonight the gods are listening very closely. The priest begins to speak. His words are slow and strange, but even without understanding, you get the shape of them. He speaks of endings, of beginnings, of the things we carry and the things we forget, of hunger, of sweetness, of bitterness, of time. And all the while, you cradle your cup like it holds the secret to staying grounded. Because maybe it does. Because maybe this bitter, sacred, slightly smoky drink isn't just a beverage. Maybe it's a story we taste, a memory we borrow. The moon begins to return. Light spills across the clearing, gentle and gray. People stir, murmur, shift their weight. Someone starts a soft rhythm on a drum. Someone else coughs. The spell breaks, but softly, respectfully. The priest smiles and drinks from his own bowl. The crowd exhales as one. You place your empty cup on the ground. Someone beside you pats your shoulder. You're not sure if it's a thank you or a welcome, but it feels like both. And as you walk slowly back through the trees, your limbs buzzing with tiredness and that last strange sip, you realize something odd. You don't remember how long the eclipse lasted. Minutes, hours, time, like chocolate, has its own flavor tonight. And it lingers. By the time the sun climbs back into the sky, the village is already alive again, but with a different rhythm. Gone is the sacred hush of ceremony. In its place, chatter, bargaining, the soft thud of baskets hitting the ground, and the ever-present scent of roasting. You've wandered into the jungle's equivalent of a cafe strip, the open-air Mayan marketplace. It's not flashy, no neon signs, no Instagrammable latte art, just rows of woven mats, stone stalls, and people making the kinds of food you didn't even know existed. And yes, there's chocolate, everywhere. But it's not the chocolate you've come to expect. Here, cacao is part of the background hum, folded into tamales, drizzled over roasted fruit, simmered with chilies, or mashed into little cakes pressed with thumbprints and left to dry on warm rocks. You pass a vendor with roasted grasshoppers, crunchy and faintly dusted with cacao powder. Next to her, someone is selling bright pink pickled onions with slices of plantain dipped in a cacao chili glaze. You blink, you're hungry, you're confused, you're intrigued. One smiling boy hands you a flatbread slathered in something dark and shiny. You bite. It's chewy, slightly sweet, slightly sour, a sauce made from burnt honey, mashed tamarind, and, yes, a hint of cacao. The combination shouldn't work. It really shouldn't, but it does. You wander deeper. A woman stirs a bubbling pot with a carved wooden spoon. The scent is intoxicating. Cacao, annatto, and what smells like garlic? She catches your expression and laughs, motioning for you to taste. You do. It's savory, sharp, with a finish that somehow coats your tongue in velvet. Historians still debate how widespread savory cacao use was in day-to-day meals. Was this a local specialty or a regional trend? Recipes weren't written down. They were memorized, modified, passed along like lullabies. So we guess, we infer, we taste the echoes. One fringe theory floating around modern culinary circles suggests that Mayan chocolate tamales may have included fermented black beans and roasted ant larvae. You hope that's not what you just ate, but honestly, even if it was, it tasted fantastic. You watch as two girls grind cacao with corn on a metate, humming as they go. The paste they make isn't for drinks, it's for a kind of jungle energy bar, rolled into tight balls, wrapped in leaves, stored in cool clay jars. Travel food, school snack, maybe even dessert if you're lucky. A man next to you buys a handful of cacao nibs and mixes them into a dried banana mash. He offers you a taste. It's chewy, sweet, earthy, like trail mix had a baby with a brownie. Not bad. And then you spot the most curious thing yet, chocolate tamales, wrapped in corn husks, steamed until firm, and unwrapped like little edible presents. Intite, a dense, warm filling of cornmeal, cacao paste, mashed sweet potatoes, and dried fruit. You sit cross-legged on the grass and take a bite. It's perfect, not rich, not overdone, just enough sweetness to satisfy, just enough bitterness to balance. The texture is somewhere between polenta and cake, a food meant to be eaten slowly, savored. It doesn't shout for attention, it simply waits for you to notice it. Someone starts playing a flute nearby, a soft, meandering tune that flits between stalls and into the trees. The entire market seems to sway with it. You finish your tamale and lean back on your elbows, watching a woman in the next stall pour cacao into small clay molds, maybe for hardening, maybe just for the joy of watching liquid set into shape. This isn't chocolate as a luxury, this is chocolate as life. The man beside you clears his throat and says something that sounds like a joke. Everyone laughs. You pretend to get it and laugh too. Whatever he said, you're sure it was good. He hands you a final treat, a tiny cacao wafer, spiced with something citrusy and sharp. You chew slowly. It's the last bite you'll take before leaving the market, and it tastes like everything this morning has been. Unexpected, quietly powerful, and built on centuries of flavor passed from hand to hand. You rise, your pouch a little heavier from gifts, your stomach pleasantly full, and your understanding of cacao changed. This isn't a flavor, it's a vocabulary, and you're only just beginning to learn how to speak it. The trail curves gently away from the marketplace and back toward a quieter cluster of homes, low stone foundations topped with thatch roofs, ringed by smoke from small cooking fires and the sharp green scent of lime trees. Chickens scratch around the roots, and in the distance someone is singing in a soft, rising cadence that sounds like a lullaby crossed with a recipe. You've arrived in the true heart of Mayan chocolate, the home kitchen, not the divine hall of priestesses, not the noble's court, not even the bustling market. This is the cacao most people knew, the everyday kind, where preparation wasn't grand or ceremonial, but deeply personal. You're about to witness the oldest form of chocolate making in its rawest form. By the hearth, with calloused hands and inherited instinct, an elder woman squats near the fire, nodding for you to join her. Her name is Im, and she's already halfway through the process, grinding roasted cacao beans on a heavy stone matot. Her motion is steady, slow. She hums quietly, not to entertain you, but to time her rhythm. You notice the grindstone dips slightly from centuries of similar movements. She's not just grinding chocolate, she's remembering it. You sit beside her and the smell is immediate, warm, bitter, nutty, with faint undertones of smoke and rain-damp earth. She points at your hands and gestures. Your turn. You kneel. It's harder than it looks. The mano, or grinder stone, is heavy. Your arms shake a little. The paste doesn't form right away. It takes pressure, heat, the right angle. Ixiom chuckles softly and adjusts your grip. The next push works better. The paste that forms is thick and oily, shimmering slightly in the firelight. You taste it off your fingers. It's deeply bitter, a little grainy, and somehow honest. No sugar, no cream, no processed afterthoughts. Just the bean, the grind, and the smoke. One fringe theory suggests that this specific preparation, grinding the cacao over a fire-warmed stone, actually alters its chemical structure, drawing out different volatile compounds. Whether scientifically true or not, the flavor does taste warmer, rounder, fuller than what you've tried before. Ixiom gestures toward several small clay jars nearby. One holds ground roasted corn, another chili. One more is filled with crushed dried flowers. She lets you smell each, raising her eyebrows when you pause on the flower blend. It smells like vanilla and jasmine had a quiet conversation. You mix it into the paste. She nods her approval. Historians still argue whether certain ingredients, like wild vanilla or rare flowers, were reserved for the wealthy or used widely in remote communities. You get the sense that here, at least, flavor isn't about wealth. It's about memory. The paste is transferred into a clay bowl, then mixed with water slowly, a little at a time, until it becomes a thick drink. No frothing this time, no public performance, just a few slow stirs. Ixiom pours the drink into 2 small cups and offers you one. You sip. It's smoky, earthy, slightly floral. The corn adds texture, almost like porridge, and there's a peppery hum that settles softly on the back of your tongue. It's humble, unpretentious, deeply nourishing. Not a beverage, a comfort. She takes her own sip, closes her eyes, and exhales through her nose. You're quiet for a long while. The fire pops. The jungle hums beyond the trees. A small child drapes a garland of leaves over your shoulders, then runs off giggling. Ixiom laughs again, this time louder, and tells you something in her language that you can't translate but feel anyway. You ask, awkwardly, in gesture and broken words, how long she's been making cacao like this. She holds up 10 fingers, then another 10, then shrugs. Time, here, is less about numbers and more about repetition. How many mornings grinding, how many bowls stirred, how many sips shared. Another woman enters the home and sets down a tray of mashed plantains and roasted beans. Ixiom scoops some of your cacao paste and mixes it in with a pinch of salt. You taste. It's creamy, rich, deeply grounding. the kind of food that fills you from the chest outward. This isn't a cafe or a ceremony. This is chocolate as memory, as inheritance, as a mother passing knowledge to her children in the space between songs and chores. You help clean up, stack the bowls, rinse the stones. The cacao scent clings to your hands, your sleeves, your breath. And as you step outside, into the gold-washed haze of early evening, you realize something simple and beautiful. This may have been the most ordinary cacao you've tasted, and somehow, the most profound. The path narrows as you leave the village again, winding past quiet fields of maize and the occasional thatched hut with smoke curling lazily from its chimney. You're headed to a different kind of gathering now, smaller, more secretive, held beneath a wide ceiba tree that locals treat with more reverence than any temple. You're not sure what to expect, but your guide is smiling. You're about to eavesdrop on a conversation older than time. Love, sickness, and the thin line between the two, held together by cacao. Under the tree, a small group of women sits in a loose circle. There's laughter, teasing, a few raised eyebrows. On a flat stone, someone is mixing cacao paste with crushed chili, cornmeal, and a paste made from flower petals and what smells suspiciously like fermented fruit. The mixture is scooped into a leaf and folded shut like a secret. You've just witnessed the making of a love potion. You're handed one of the leaf parcels. It's warm, soft, and smells like flowers had a spicy argument with the campfire. You glance around. Are you supposed to eat this? Someone nods. You take a bite. It's sweet, but not sugary. Floral, but not perfumed. The chili creeps in slowly, like a blush. You chew thoughtfully, and someone grins at you. Whether or not it works, you'll never know, but it tastes like possibility. One woman launches into a long animated story about a time she gave a cacao drink to a boy who then couldn't stop dreaming about her for 3 weeks. Everyone laughs, but not in disbelief, in solidarity. Apparently, cacao and romance go hand in hand. One fringe theory suggests that cacao was used not only to attract lovers, but to deter them. Add too much chili, sprinkle in a bitter root, suddenly the potion becomes a repellent. Cacao as emotional sabotage. You sip a second version, hoping no one's trying to make you leave. Historians still argue whether these cacao-based potions had real pharmacological effects or were simply cultural placebos. Some of the ingredients, like certain orchids and fermented fruit, do have mild mood-altering properties, but mostly it seems these were rituals of intention, of focus. You drink for desire, you drink for forgetfulness, you drink to say something without saying it. A young man approaches the circle and offers a tiny wrapped parcel to one of the women. She inspects it carefully, opens it, sniffs it, then eats it in one bite. The group howls. A joke? A dare? A reply? You're not sure, but your guide leans in and whispers, "That's her answer." You look around and realize that cacao here is more than flavor. It's a language, a method of communication passed through hands, folded into leaves, whispered under breath, a system of symbols that your tongue has only just begun to decipher. Another woman reaches into a jar and offers you a different version. Cacao mixed with crushed charcoal, wild mint, and a bit of chalky white root. "This one," she says, "is for clearing out a bad heart." You sip. It's sharp, medicinal, but not unpleasant. Like truth, you wonder how many arguments were soothed by drinks like this, how many hearts softened, how many goodbyes were spoken without words, just a sip and a nod and the handing over of a leaf-wrapped truth. Cacao doesn't just stir the blood, it settles it too. You sit in the shade and listen. No one rushes, no one checks the time. Someone shares a story about a husband who tried to hide from his wife during planting season. She found him because she recognized the scent of cacao on his breath. There's laughter, agreement, a knowing glance passed around like a bowl. Eventually, the group begins to disperse. The fire is banked, the stone slab wiped clean. Someone hums a song with no words, and you hum along, badly, but sincerely. You're handed one last drink for the road. It's cacao mixed with vanilla and ground rose hips. They say this one's for remembering. Not just people, but feelings. Smiles, glances, secrets. You take a sip and the warmth blooms in your chest like a slow sunrise. because sometimes memory tastes bitter, and sometimes it's just the right amount of sweet. The path from the love circle meanders deeper into the jungle, and now the air feels different, thicker, quieter, with a hush that isn't just about sound. It's the hush of illness, of fever, of whispered prayers and careful hands. You arrive at a small clearing where a smoke rises in thin spirals from under a wooden hut. Inside, you see bundles of herbs hanging like green chandeliers, gourds filled with water, stones warming over coals, and in the center, a woman with piercing eyes and a bundle of cacao beans in her lap. You're about to meet the AJ man, the healer, the one who knows what to do when breath grows ragged and the light behind the eyes starts to flicker. She doesn't say much, just gestures for you to lie down. So you do, on a mat of woven reeds, still warm from the last patient. You're not sick, not really, but you are willing, and that's enough. She dips her fingers into a dark paste and begins to smear it across your chest. The scent is familiar. Cacao, yes, but mixed with crushed garlic, smoke, and something minty sharp. The paste is thick, warm, oddly comforting. You try to ask what's in it, but she only taps her nose. Smell. Don't speak. One fringe theory suggests that Mayan healers used cacao not just for its stimulant effects, but for its ability to carry other medicines into the body. The fat from the cacao helped deliver herbs and minerals through the skin or gut more effectively. Whether or not that's scientifically confirmed, you feel it now, sinking, soothing, spreading warmth through your chest like an internal fire being gently coaxed back to life. Historians still argue about the medical use of cacao. Was it a base, a cure, or a ritual balm? Some ancient texts reference cacao being used for everything from fever to snakebite to sadness. Others suggest its most powerful use was symbolic, a reminder of the heart, the blood, the divine rhythm of the body. You don't know which version you're experiencing, but the woman's hands are steady, her eyes are kind, and when she places a warm cup in your hands, you don't question it, you drink. This brew is different again, earthy, chalky. It tastes like dirt and ash and something vaguely metallic, but it's not unpleasant, it's serious, and you respect that. Another woman enters, limping slightly, and is guided to a stool near the fire. The healer mixes a new blend, cacao with crushed seeds and a powder from bark you don't recognize. She stirs it with a carved bone stick, muttering under her breath. When she hands over the cup, the woman drinks with both hands, eyes closed. This is not comfort food. This is medicine, ritual, recovery. You watch as another patient arrives, an old man with a cough that rattles like dried beans in a jar. He's given a cacao drink too, this one infused with what smells like eucalyptus and burnt lime. He takes slow sips between wheezes. Eventually, his breathing eases, just a little. You're not sure if it's the cacao or the care that helps. But something shifts. The healer presses a final dab of paste onto your temples and mutters something like a prayer. You don't catch the words, but you feel them. Later, she shows you a collection of dried herbs and roots, each labeled with painted symbols. Beside them, wrapped in palm fronds, are small bricks of cacao paste, hard, dark, and scented with smoke and thyme. These, your guide says softly, are for the days you can't find yourself. You take a brick in your hands, it's heavier than it looks, and suddenly you understand that for the Mayans, cacao was more than a cure. It was a grounding force, a way to remind the body of its rhythm, to remind the spirit of its place, to coax life back into balance, one bitter sip at a time. The healer doesn't ask for thanks. She only nods and returns to grinding more paste. And as you step back out into the daylight, the weight in your chest, real or imagined, feels just a little lighter. The jungle fades behind you now, replaced by the creak of wooden boards and the salt-bitten scent of the sea. You're standing at the edge of a dock, watching men load heavy crates onto a ship whose sails flap lazily in the breeze. There's laughter, harsh, guttural, unfamiliar. The faces are different now, the clothes, heavier, the language, not your own. You've stepped into the moment where the world shifts. The Spanish have arrived, and they're taking the beans. The docks are chaotic. Crates of obsidian, jade trinkets, dried chili, bundles of maize, and sacks upon sacks of cacao beans. You see soldiers in steel breastplates pretending not to sweat, priests clutching books and rosaries, scribes frantically recording every name, every number. And off to one side, a Mayan trader stands silently, arms crossed, watching the entire performance like it's an old play he's already seen 100 times. One soldier cracks open a crate, lifts a handful of cacao beans to his nose, sniffs, grimaces. "Too bitter," he mutters, in Spanish. They don't get it yet. You follow a friar into the belly of the ship, where barrels of cacao are being stowed next to sacks of gold and silver artifacts. He pulls out a notebook and writes a single word next to a drawing of the cacao pod. Curioso. You sip the bitter drink a Mayan porter offers, thick, cold, mixed with crushed corn and chili. The friar tastes it too, winces, then immediately turns to a nearby crew member and says something about adding sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, anything. Historians still argue whether the Spanish refined chocolate or ruined it. Was it evolution or erasure? They brought cacao back to Europe, yes, but left the preparation behind. What arrived in royal courts and aristocratic salons was sweetened, strained, boiled, whipped, served with cream, stripped of chili, served hot. One fringe theory even claims early European chocolate was blended with wine and egg yolk to create a frothy custard-like drink. You suppress a shudder, because what's lost in translation isn't just flavor, it's meaning. The Mayans didn't drink cacao to show off. They drank it to connect, to root themselves, to speak without speaking. The Spanish, well, let's just say they liked their drinks palatable, fashionable, and preferably gold-trimmed. You sit on a crate and watch as barrels of sacred paste, once frothed lovingly by priestesses and grandmothers, are now measured by weight and listed by cargo value. It's all very efficient, but also deeply sad. A conquistador nearby scoffs at the bitterness, tossing a few stray beans into the sea. You flinch, irrationally angry, like he just insulted your grandmother's soup. He doesn't notice. A priest approaches you and offers a small flask. Inside is his version of cacao, boiled, sweetened, flavored with cinnamon bark from the Philippines and sugarcane from the Caribbean. You take a sip. It's fine. Pleasant even, but sterile. Something about it feels off. It's too smooth, too processed, like a story that's been edited to the point of losing its soul. One Mayan servant watches you taste, then smirks. "You miss the foam," he says quietly. You nod. It's more than the foam, of course. It's the fire, the stone grind, the whispered jokes during preparation, the songs, the rituals, and the weight of the matate in your hands, the jaguar priest and the courtyard mothers, and the way even a simple stew could carry history in its heat. The Spanish took the beans, yes, but they left the stories behind. Still, a few seeds remained in hands that remembered. A few recipes survived in songs and calloused fingers. Some flavors faded, others adapted. Cacao kept changing, moving, becoming, never fully the same, but never completely gone either. And as the sails catch wind and the ship creaks into the open water, carrying its bitter treasure toward distant palaces, you find yourself clinging to a single, quietly rebellious truth. The chocolate they're taking won't taste right without the memory. The wind is different now, softer, warmer. You're no longer on a ship or beneath a thatched roof. You're in a modern field somewhere in Central America. The sky is bright, the air smells like citrus and wet earth, and a soft radio hums in the background, playing a tune older than it sounds. You've come full circle. You're standing at the edge of a cacao grove, not ancient, not overgrown, but carefully tended. The trees are smaller than you expected, their trunks twisted and dappled with light, and growing from their branches are those same unmistakable pods, yellow, orange, deep red, just like the ones you saw cracked open beside jungle fires so many nights ago. But these aren't wild trees, they're curated, nurtured, protected. You're visiting one of the small farms where forgotten flavors are being found again. A farmer named Teresa meets you by the gate, her wide-brimmed hat covered in a fine layer of red dust. She doesn't speak much English, but she doesn't need to. She smiles, hands you a fresh cacao pod, and gestures to the drying racks. Here, under the sun, beans are fermenting the old way, covered with leaves, turned by hand. It smells alive, funky even, but familiar. You lean in and inhale. Yes, there it is, the jungle, the fire, the memory. Teresa tells you, through a translator, that her family has been growing cacao for generations, but in the last decade, they've been working with researchers, chefs, and historians to recover ingredients once thought extinct. Herbs like orajuela, rare chilies, and wild orchids with vanilla-like notes. One fringe theory gaining traction now, that some of the Mayan flavoring flowers weren't just about taste, but about chemistry. The compounds helped balance bitterness, activate specific flavors in the cacao fat, and even preserve the paste longer without refrigeration. You can't prove it, of course, but the modern brews here definitely taste more layered, more alive. Historians still debate how much we've truly recovered. For every herb rediscovered, there are likely 5 still unknown. Ingredients described in glyphs that no longer grow, that were erased by farming shifts, colonization, or climate change. But what survives, survives strong. Teresa hands you a tiny cup of cacao. It's different from the drinks you've had before. There's no sugar, no milk, just stone ground paste, fermented for days, infused with 3 things: dried hibiscus petals, wild vanilla, and a rare white chili that bites just once, then disappears. You sip. The foam is there, light, delicate, but proud, and so is the bitterness. But it doesn't hit hard. It hums quietly beneath floral and citrus notes, balanced like a memory that's finally stopped hurting. Teresa walks you to a shaded patch beneath the trees where a small stone metate sits. Her daughter is grinding beans with the same quiet rhythm you remember. And next to her, a notebook, handwritten recipes, notes on fermentation temperature, a sketch of a flower you've never seen, labeled missing. This is what revival looks like. Not a museum, a grove, a family, a grinding stone, and a recipe lost 3 centuries ago, now written down again in blue ink and careful print. You ask if she ever makes chocolate the modern way. Teresa laughs. Sometimes, for tourists, but not for us. You can't help but smile, because now you know that ancient chocolate isn't a flavor you can buy at a store. It's something you earn with time, with care, with smoke and sweat, and the kind of memory that clings to your hands and refuses to wash off. You take another sip. This one is spiked with something herbal, sharp, piney, strange, but it works. And in the distance you hear someone laugh. A child, maybe, or a bird. The wind shifts again, and you breathe it all in. The taste, the jungle, the past blooming quietly into the present. You're seated now in the shade of a tin-roofed porch, sipping a cup of something warm and unfamiliar. It's cacao, yes, but different. Again, always different. This one is smoother, a little sweeter, lightly spiced. There's a hint of cinnamon, a brush of chili, and something citrusy you can't quite place. The woman who served it says it's local orange peel, dried and steeped in the brew. You're about to conduct a taste test, not one of precision, but of memory, of time. In front of you are 2 cups. One, the modern interpretation, filtered, frothed with a mechanical whisk, just a little sweetened, spiced with cinnamon and vanilla. This is the version you'd find at a specialty cafe in a city that charges extra for oat milk. The other, ancient, earthy, gritty, frothed by hand, blended with roasted cornmeal, crushed dried flowers, and just enough chili to make you question your bravery. You sip the modern one first. It's delicious, polished, polite. Then the ancient version. It's not as smooth. The grit clings to your teeth. The bitterness sits a little longer. The chili doesn't ask permission, but something in your brain wakes up. Something slow, curious, old. Historians still argue whether modern chocolate has anything left of its Mesoamerican soul. Has it been so altered by sugar, by cream, by marketing slogans, that we've forgotten its sacred start? Or is there a quiet continuity in the way we crave it, the way we turn to it in moments of comfort or need? One fringe theory suggests that flavor memory, our emotional reaction to taste, can carry cultural echoes even when ingredients change. That a modern chocolate bar still whispers to some ancient corner of the brain that once drank cacao under moonlight. You hold both cups and try again. This time, you pay attention to the foam. The ancient brew's froth sinks almost immediately, leaving a faint ring like lichen on a stone. The modern froth is thick, syrupy, artificial. You swirl both. The older drink has more scent. Ash, bark, a little banana leaf. The newer one smells like Christmas in a mug. Neither is wrong, but only one feels like a story. A man sits beside you, a local historian with a twinkle in his eye. He asks which cup you prefer. You pause. You don't know how to answer. He laughs like he's seen this before. They're both chocolate, he says. One is just quieter. He goes on to explain how cacao today is caught between identities. It's a luxury item, a health trend, a comfort food, a marketing tool. But for the Mayans, it was something simpler and deeper. A medium, a message, a mirror. You look again at the ancient drink. There's something in the texture that demands respect. You can't chug it. You have to sit with it. Let it unfold. It's a slow burn, not a sugar hit. And that's when you notice something small. The foam on the old drink rises again, just slightly. A ring of bubbles clinging to the rim like it's trying to remind you, hey, I'm still here. Flavor is more than taste. It's touch, scent, memory, metaphor. The modern drink goes down easy, leaves your mouth clean, your brain satisfied. But the old one, it lingers. You finish both. Because of course you do. But only one leaves you thinking about rain-soaked temples, stone-ground mornings, sacred hands grinding under moonlight. And as the sun begins to dip again, casting long gold shadows across the porch, you feel like you've just closed a chapter. Not finished it, just let it breathe. Because maybe like cacao itself, some flavors aren't meant to end, they're meant to echo. You're walking again, slowly this time, not through jungle paths or marketplace stalls, but along a quiet dirt road bordered by rows of cacao trees. The light is honey gold, stretching shadows from trunk to trunk. The air is still. Even the birds seem to be catching their breath. This is the last stretch, but not an ending. You stop and rest your hand on the bark of a tree, gnarled, cracked, dusted with moss. Above you, a ripe pod sways gently in the breeze. It doesn't look extraordinary, but it carries everything you've seen, everything you've tasted. This is the flavor memory of an empire. You sit at the base of the tree and take out a small brick of cacao wrapped in banana leaf, one that Teresa gave you earlier. You unwrap it slowly, letting the scent bloom. It's rich, complex, like the drink you had under the eclipse, like the stew by the hearth, like the first bowl frothed by courtyard hands under morning light. This isn't nostalgia, it's presence. You scrape a corner with your fingernail and let it melt on your tongue. Bitterness first, then smoke, then something deeper, earth, stone, time. Historians still argue how much of the original cacao experience can ever be recovered. Climate shifts have changed the trees. Farming practices have evolved. Some ingredients are gone, some remembered, some never documented at all. One fringe theory suggests that cacao wasn't just a cultural cornerstone, it was also a mnemonic device, that Mayans used taste to remember stories, that each blend was a narrative, a political message, a family memory, a coded prayer. The foam was the punctuation, the spice, the plot twist. You close your eyes and let the last bite dissolve. The jungle you walk through feels far away now, but it's still with you, in the quiet tingle of chili on your lips, in the lingering floral trace that reminds you of markets and mothers in moonlit songs. All this from a bean. The sun is low now. The sky deepens to purple. The trees stand in silhouette, and the road behind you fades into shadow. You don't need to walk anymore. You've been everywhere. The noble halls, the healing huts, the starlit temples, the smoky kitchens, the fields where flavors vanish and return. You've tasted cacao not as candy but as sorry, as ceremony, as defiance, as comfort, and as the final light catches the rust-red shell of the cacao pod above you, you wonder how many other flavors the world has forgotten, how many other stories we've traded for sweetness, for speed, but for now, there's peace in the knowing. You lie back, let the warm air settle over you, listen to the wind moving through the leaves, and slowly, softly you let go of the day. Let the warmth of the cacao linger. Let it hold in your chest like embers beneath ash. You've walked far tonight, through fireside kitchens and jade-covered courts, through laughter shared over tamales and silence held under eclipsed skies. Every flavor, every sip was a thread, and now they're woven into something whole. There's nothing left to understand right now, no lessons to remember, just the way the memory of bitterness sweetens when it's given time. Let your breath slow, let your thoughts soften. The world you walk through tonight may be long gone, but the stories still echo, gentle, grounded, quietly alive in every bean, in every bowl, in every ritual we remake without knowing. Let your limbs get heavier. Let the night wrap around you like steam off a morning brew. You're safe here. You're welcome here. And maybe in your dreams you'll find yourself back in that courtyard, a bowl in your hands, a soft laugh at your side, the taste of history rising on your tongue like the first foam of the day. Close your eyes. The jungle will still be here when you wake. Sweet dreams.